I'm the founder and I was the former president of the Squirrel Watching Club, and I'm currently working as a civil engineer with the Army Corps of Engineers. Before I get into the presentation, I'd like to do a quick, in memory of Peanut. Peanut was a very famous squirrel that was the spokesperson for a big wildlife rehab and sanctuary in New York. New York's Department of Environmental Conservation came in and said, oh, you can't keep this squirrel, and euthanized it. So it is a big loss to the squirrel community, and there is a petition, if anyone's interested in signing it, to kind of hold them accountable for, they had all the permits for this, and yeah. And then there's a link that just tells more information on Peanut Freedom Farm. Anyways, so my credentials, I was former president of the Squirrel Watching Club. I think this speaks for itself. I'm a big animal guy, always have been. So we'll start with, what is a squirrel? Squirrels are mammals. They are rodents, actually. That means they have big front teeth that never stop growing, very strong. So they have to keep constantly gnawing to whittle those down. They all, for the most part, have bushy tails. So there's three types of squirrels. There's tree squirrels, flying squirrels, and ground squirrels. There are 9 species of squirrels in Michigan, 2 different flying squirrels, 2 different chipmunks, 2 different ground squirrels, the 13-line ground squirrel and the ground hog, and 2 tree squirrels, the red squirrel and the eastern gray squirrel. And then there's some honorary mentions. These are very cool looking squirrels, not native to the US, but the Malabar giant squirrel, also known as the Indian giant squirrel. This is the largest squirrel by weight. It gets up to the size of a very large cat. You can see it on the shoulder. Very large, can get 3.5 feet in length, weigh up to 10 pounds. Second one is this Prevost squirrel. Very small guy. It is being threatened in the pet trade. People are going and poaching it and capturing it, selling it for pets, because it does look cool. I would like to own one, but it's not ethical. And then the giant red flying squirrel. This is the longest squirrel. It can get up to 4 feet in length. It has a 4-foot wingspan. Yeah, it's native to India, Nepal, southern China, that whole region there. And cool looking guy. So flying squirrels. Now we're getting into the native squirrels in Michigan. There are 2 species of flying squirrel: the northern flying squirrel, the southern flying squirrel. Northern flying squirrel is going to be in the northern lower peninsula and the upper peninsula, Canada. Doesn't really get down past the midpoint of the lower peninsula. But then the southern flying squirrel can be found in the lower peninsula and then all through the southern US. Both are very small and both get up to a foot in length, and that's tail length and body length. So body length is going to be about half that. So key features of flying squirrels: they have huge eyes. They're nocturnal, so that's why they've got the big black eyes, let in as much light as they can. Helps them see at night. They have big skin flaps. They don't have wings, but they have big skin flaps. And then they've got a little cartilagey wrist spur, they call it, that it can grab onto that skin flap and extend it. And that's what helps it glide. They don't fly, so the name flying squirrel is kind of a misnomer, but they do glide. And they've got silky thick fur that helps to deaden their sound. They're night hunters. They're looking for moths, bugs. They'll eat birds' eggs. But yeah, that being super fluffy and dense helps them land quiet. Yeah, like I said, they glide, they don't fly. They do use their tails to steer, kind of like the rudder of a boat. And then from a height of 60 feet, which is your average tall deciduous tree, I guess, they can glide about 150 feet down to the ground. They don't really take fall damage because of their low size and ability to glide. And then they build their nests in any small crevice they can find, cracks in trees, old birds' nests, caves, and then they line it with moss. They'll line it with fur, feathers that they find from birds. All right, what do you call a squirrel with no legs? A ground squirrel. So first kind of ground squirrel I'm going to talk about are the chipmunks. These are the smallest. They are going to have the smallest tails of any of the squirrel species. The two types of chipmunks native to Michigan are the least chipmunk and the eastern chipmunk. They both look very similar. The main way to tell them apart is where you can find them. The least chipmunk you can find around the edges of forests, any forest clearings, fields to an extent if there's a lot of brush cover. The eastern chipmunk is going to be in more wooded areas. They're both around the same size, 8 to 10 inches. They're omnivores, mainly eating seeds, nuts, plants, but they will eat bugs. They will eat birds' eggs. The 13-line ground squirrel is a little bigger. It's going to be about a foot in length. Average weight is about 5 ounces, so still fairly light. Yeah, lives up to 2 years in the wild. All squirrels are going to live a lot longer in captivity. There's just not many predators and more steady food source. And then there's the groundhog, which is the largest squirrel. Not a lot of people realize this is still a species of squirrel, but it is. Very, very big, 26 inches in length. They can get about 13 pounds. They are mostly herbivores. They'll eat plants. They'll break into your garden, eat all your veggies. They will eat bugs if they have to, but mainly they're going to be looking for plants. So key features of ground squirrels, they're going to have shorter bushy tails. That helps them when they're burrowing. If they are being chased by a predator and they dip into their burrow, less for the predator to grab onto. So that's main advantage of the bushy tails. They're not climbing trees, so they don't need it to control their fall. They have big, thick paws and thick claws. That helps them dig a lot. They build extensive burrows. So they're diurnal. They dig complex burrows. I've got a diagram of one at the next slide, but they're very social. They greet each other actually by open mouth kissing. It's a little weird, but that's how they do it. But yeah, usually you'll have a bunch of individual burrows, but all in close proximity to each other. That way, when they're out looking for food, there's usually 1 or 2 squirrels standing guard. If they see a hawk or any predator, they'll give the alarm and everyone will go and hide. And then they'll take turns standing watch too. Actually, they can predict the length of winter too. Mainly the groundhog. This picture is not of a Michigan squirrel, but this is a more southern or southwestern squirrel that lives in the desert. They've been known to chew up rattlesnake skin and spit it out and rub it into their fur and tails to mask their scent, make themselves smell more like a predator. So that helps to defend themselves against their other snakes, other birds that are hunting them by scent. And so this is a diagram of ground squirrel's nest. It's actually really intricate. They'll dig drainage tunnels going pretty deep. They've got a few different tunnels that just hold food, and then their nest tunnel. And then they'll usually have a few secret escape tunnels. Tree squirrels. So the eastern fox squirrel, you don't see this too much around Detroit, but you see it further north, further south. It's going to be a little smaller than the eastern gray squirrel, which is the primary squirrel we see around here. Lifespan is 7 months, so they really don't live all that long in the wild, but they can live up to 18 years in captivity. Then we've got the red squirrel. This is the smallest of the tree squirrels. All the tree squirrels are omnivores. Red squirrels, though, are the only squirrel that hoards all of its food in one spot. They'll find like a hollowed out tree trunk and just hoard all their food there. And they'll have like their family lines will all use that same hoard. Every other squirrel hides their food in like separate places. They do grow tufted ears in the winter as well. And then the eastern gray squirrel. So this is the squirrel you're going to see around Detroit. There's the two color variants, black and the gray. And then you'll see like some of them have combinations of the two. Some will have a more black tail. Some will have like a black body with a white tail. There can be a lot of variation with that. So your key features of a tree squirrel, strong front teeth. That's all squirrels really. But tree squirrels will have double jointed wrists. This lets them climb upwards and backwards, like around trees. It really helps with climbing. They use their tail as a parachute, so they can fall from about 100 feet and not really take any damage. Then they can reach 20 miles per hour as a top speed, but not for very long, just short bursts of it. So Michigan is actually one of the only places that has the black color squirrel. It's a genetic mutation that occurred in Windsor-ish area, and they've traveled over to Michigan through that. And and I don't think they may be in Ohio, Illinois area, but not further than that. The advantages of that is still fairly unknown. There's theories that it helps them blend into blacktop or dark pavement. There's a theory that it also helps them blend in more coniferous forests rather than deciduous forests, which is more common the further north you go. There's also a theory that it just helps them stay warmer in the winters up north, helps them absorb more sunlight. So their feeding habits. They're going to store their food in various places. They're going to bury it. They're going to hide it on your porch. They're going to hide it in trees, anywhere they can find. They do hide fake food. They'll grab a rock and hide it if they know other squirrels are looking, or they'll pretend to bury it in like a few different places to throw off squirrels, because they will steal each other's food. They have very good memories, very smart. They only forget about 30% of the food that they hide, which is really good for the amount of food that they do hide. But in forgetting that 30%, it helps spread forests. They'll hide an acorn, they'll forget about it, and boom, that just grew into a tree. So very good for the ecosystem. More squirrel behavior. So when a squirrel feels threatened, it will start flashing its tail back and forth as a warning to you that it's upset. It also warns other squirrels in the area, makes it look bigger, a little more intimidating. They kind of shriek a little bit or chitter when they're upset. When they're hot, they kind of lay down like that. It's called splooting. That's to try and get some of their like body temperature regulated. And then, so this is a diagram of a tree squirrel's nest. They're gonna build this up in the top of the tree, somewhere where the wind doesn't shake the tree as hard. They're gonna build it out of sticks, out of leaves, and then they're gonna line it with soft moss, fur, old blankets, anything they find in the trash around here. So main squirrel predators, mainly in Detroit, you're only worried about the cats. There's an occasional hawk. Coyotes are in like Belle Isle area and the more like North Endish area. There are coyotes out there that will predator on them, and owls. And so squirrel bites. This is a question I get asked a lot because I'm always feeding squirrels, and I've been bitten by squirrels many times. Sometimes they bite down to the bone. It hurts, but you don't have to worry about getting rabies from a squirrel. For a squirrel to get rabies, it would have to have been bitten by something that had rabies. And so it would either be like a raccoon, dog, a cat, and odds are it would kill it. The squirrels are really too small to survive an attack by a rabid animal. So there have been 0 known cases of rabies coming from squirrels. So still, you don't want to get bit. You can still get other infections, bacteria, tetanus. Their bite force is 7,000 psi also, compared to humans of 500. And that's all directed on those 2 front teeth. So it is very, very powerful. It does hurt, but you don't have to worry about rabies. So squirrels in cities. Cities provide a steady food source for squirrels, so that's why you'll see a lot bigger squirrels in cities than in more rural areas. Up north, the squirrels are like half the size than the squirrels you see here. They are viewed as pests by a lot of organizations, a lot of groups. They do get into your house. They do like to chew wires for some reason. When I was living down like 3 blocks away from campus, we would get squirrels in that would always go for the Wi-Fi cord and chew through it like once a month. For some reason, they really like cords. They'll get into your garden. They'll eat all your veggies. So a lot of people don't necessarily like them, but they do bring a lot of good to the ecosystem as well. And that's partly what I'm trying to convey with this talk. But there is a quote also saying squirrels cause more financial damage to critical infrastructure than cyber attacks. Because they chew through so many wires, they have been known to cause power outages by either chewing through a cable or knocking down a cable. They will hide food. I've seen this where they filled like an entire power line, hollow like steel power line full of acorns. And it was kind of living in the top, and it just ruined that whole structure and wiped out power to a whole neighborhood. So they can be fairly destructive, but I don't know. They're cool. They're cute little guys. Few more random squirrel facts. They very smart. They have very good sense of direction. If you do capture a squirrel in a live trap and you're trying to just move it out of your area, make it someone else's problem, you would have to drive 10 miles away at least. They can find their way back within 10 miles. Also, the way their eyes are positioned, they can see almost a 360 degrees. They can see like directly behind them. And there's a few additional orgs that I'd like to shout out. Marley's Castle Wildlife Rescue is a wildlife sanctuary that will help rehab and take care of any hurt animals in Detroit, mainly raccoons, possums, and squirrels. So if you do find a squirrel that is hurt or like a baby squirrel that's out of the nest, not doing so good, like someone mentioned, it is technically illegal to raise the squirrel. So I'm not condoning you do it, but it's
a long time ago.
Yeah, but if you have the facilities, if you don't, reach out to Marley's Castle Wildlife Rescue, or there's probably a few others in the area. This is just the closest to Wayne State. And then, so there are also squirrel watching clubs at most of the major campuses in Michigan. Wayne State, obviously, Central Michigan, U of M, Michigan State, and Western Michigan all have one that I'm aware of. And so that's about it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Well, thank you very much, Kelvin. I would claim this is was a refreshing change of pace, and I'm sure there is many questions rolling around.
Many years ago, I did a little squirrel study as an undergrad. I'm wondering if you're aware of any dietary preferences in squirrels living in urban, centers versus rural areas.
I always see them with slices of pizza. I don't have any scientific backing for it, but fries, pizza, any super fatty, rich food, they love. They are, especially now, they're bulking for the winter. They're trying to put on as much fat as they can to help them stay warm and help them go through the winter. So yeah, anything that's super fatty, they
Follow-up
like.
question. Have you
Yeah.
noticed a pizza preference? Asking for a friend.
I'd be interested in that, seeing if they'd rather have pizza or pepperoni.
Like, Detroit style.
Definitely Detroit style. I mean, who doesn't? Yeah.
Yeah, given the amount of cyber damage that they seem to cause, has there been any evidence that the Russians or the Chinese?
No evidence yet, but I could see it. Yeah.
Kind of related to that. So if squirrels cause so much damage to like cables and stuff,
Mhm.
do you know are like people thinking about ways to stop that from happening? Like how do you manage cables better in cities so they don't get used much?
So it happens often, but not often at the same spot. So I don't think there's too much of a need for better cable management. It's more just keeping them away from your house and like sealing up your crawl spaces so they can't get in. I think that's really the best way. Yeah.
So for one of those, I think was the eastern fox squirrel.
Yeah.
Eastern is like 7 months. The others, why do you think that is?
I'm not sure. So my guess is you don't really see them around cities. So they're in places where there are a lot of predators. They do breed really fast. They breed a lot quicker than the other species of squirrel. So I think they're just kind of built that way. So yeah, that's my best guess at least. Yeah.
Kind of opposite end of that same spectrum, you have the gray squirrel that lives this incredibly long 12-year lifespan,
Mhm.
and also is found in cities, and also now has this recessive black coloring. Based on your experience, does it seem like that's almost diverging from the rest of the squirrels into a new species that lives in human-built environments instead of in the lab?
Honestly, probably give it another 50 years and it might. They tend to outcompete the gray squirrels or the gray color morph in most instances. So I could see that over time splitting off into a new species. Yeah.
I would have a question related to that. I think last time you mentioned also the approximate time point of the origin of the black morph, right?
Yeah, it was the 60s, I want to say 1960s.
Really recent.
Mhm. And it popped up, and immediately in the city areas, it just kind of kept going. And spread. It hasn't spread too far past Michigan yet. But
Do we know if there's like actually is selective pressure on, like the black pelage versus the gray pelage, or is it just, a drift?
I'm not sure. I would have to look at any papers written about that. I haven't done too much of an extensive research on that, but it appears so.
We also have a question from the online audience.
Mhm.
Dr. Karen Meyer, who's the faculty advisor of the Squirrel Watching Club.
Who is? I don't know if we have one. So
A preliminary answer, I guess.
yeah.
Anjali is asking, are there any endangered squirrel species? Great talk, by the way. And that's the answer.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a few. I'm not sure what they are off the top of my head. Squirrels, like most rodents, breed so fast that they're able to control their population. Actually, no, that's a lie. I do know. It's this one. I don't want to butcher the name. The Prevost squirrel. So it's either on the cusp of being endangered or it is being endangered. So And it's found on a few different island ranges as well as slight mainland. But any squirrel that's native to an island has a lot higher risk of that.
Then we have a comment by Dr. Meyer. One of the comparative physiology course team projects is preferred foraging time of day for feeding for local squirrels. She will report in December, but are you willing to make some predictions?
Yeah.
What do you think is the preferred foraging time?
Is this time of day or time of year?
Time of day.
Time of day. During the morning hours and then the afternoon hours.
So this is on the record. This is being recorded, and I think this is a wonderful reference point for this student project. Then, of course, so this is citizen science by nature, and it also has a public aspect by you serving as the president for a total of 2 years. Is that correct?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, I started the club in 4 years. I started the club in 2018.
Okay,
And
because I saw 22 online, so for me, that's
yeah
why I came up with a shorter estimate. So maybe to round things out, are there 1 or 2 major events of significance during your governance of the Wayne State Squirrel Watching Club you would like to share with us?
Yeah, we held an event called Squeester. It was around Easter time. We had a big fundraiser to raise money to donate to the National Wildlife Federation. We ended up raising about like $400 and some change, and we had a few different like raffles for our hoodies, our Man I Love Squirrels hoodies. We had I was out there in a squirrel costume with a catcher's mask, and you for like $5 you could throw like 3 water balloons at me. And we had a few different things like that. You could spin a wheel for candy. We were just collecting donations. So that was probably our biggest event. We had a few like game nights, some movie nights, stuff like that as well.
Thank you very much for sharing, and thank you for rounding out our understanding of squirrel behavior and squirrel diversity on campus. And so with that, Kelvin Selegean, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that ends the recording.